Well, the first one's going to be Rusty Spinner, and um, it represents a spent mayfly that falls to the surface at the end of life. Um, there's several renditions of this fly, but the basic concept is the same. Um, it can also be tied in black for trico spinners. And the Rusty Spinner is really popular, and I think it's mainly because it doesn't necessarily matter what color it is, because when it's a spinner, they're flat on the surface and on the surface film. And since there's hardly any vertical presence, the trout pretty much sees it as a silhouette against the sky. And so it's more important to get the basic profile down and the basic size if you can. So I'm going to try to do this on a 16, and hopefully I'm used to doing most of these flies in about a 10 or a 12, so it's better for the camera, but hopefully we won't be shaking too much. And hopefully I won't be shaking too much. So the tailing material is, these are some old, I think it's John Betts tailing fibers. It's basically fibers from a brush. I'm sure you could get an art brush that would have those that you could use for that, but they have to come to a really fine tip. And then the body will be this rust colored Antron. I'm using for this, it's just a straight eye dry fly hook. And it doesn't really matter for the spinner. The RS2 that I'm doing next, that's what Rim Chung tied that fly on, was always a straight eye hook. So I'm going to do them both with the same hook. I'm going to start a kind of a rust colored thread. And I got to switch cameras here. Not used to having two cameras. Sorry about that camera. I'm going to cut off that waist. And there's a little trick for doing the fibers. So I'm going to take two of those. I think that's two. You could do three if you want. Some mayflies have three tails, but they're pretty even right now. So I'm going to put them in exaggerated long. And then with about 3 turns of thread, I should be able to pull them. On these spinners, I like to leave those tails really long. The actual natural insect is probably a little bit shorter than that. But if you see, that's almost a hook shank and a half. And then I'll cut those at about the body length there. Now, here's where the trick comes in. So I have another piece of the same thread that I cut off earlier. And if you take that thread and put it back here around the bend of the hook, then I'll use my bodkin to separate Come on, Mike.
Yeah, it's hard to do.
Let me try to get this more centered and reach up around. What I want to do, and there I just did it. Hang on. Now that those are split a little bit, I could have done that with my thumbnail and made this a little bit easier. But you want to bring that thread around the hook bend and then bring it, doggone it. What I should be doing is use my reading glasses.
I had the same problem with that technique, Mike, so I know I'm suffering with you.
Yeah, it's
Well,
hard.
I've done this a few times, and that made it so much easier. Whoop, went too fast.
Yeah,
Bring it right up in between those fibers.
You have 3 of them, it's even harder.
And then give it a couple of wraps. And then you can take that and pull on it to spread those tailing fibers out. So if you look there, that's got a nice and separated. And the harder you pull it, the more they're going to spread apart. But I like about where those are sitting. So I'm going to go back forward to get the rest of that thread tied in place and clip it out of the way. I'm going to go back down, spin my thread counterclockwise as if you're looking down on it to kind of flatten it out a little bit. And build that body up real nice. Spin it again. Go about halfway down. About there. And back up. And that's pretty good. You know what? I'm making this out of thread. What am I doing? All right. I'm going to cut some Antron here. And you can just split the Antron like this. Can you see that? I'm going to pull it out of the camera. It's harder to do it there. And there I've got about half of it. And I'm going to capture that with a couple of thread turns wrap it to the back, and then go forward. And I really like the shine of that Antron. I'll go to about where the thorax area is supposed to be, right in there. I'll tie that off. Now, the wings are going to be the white Antron. And you can save yourself a lot of heartache by cutting it at the bend where it goes around the card. And using that section. When you try to use that bend, sometimes that really gets in your way. So I'm going to take a section and tie it in about the 1/4 of the shank back from the eye. And then just do some crossing wraps back and forth across that just to lay them flat.
So the wings are about the same diameter as the body then? That's what you shoot for?
Yeah, because you're going to trim those. You're going to trim those back.
Okay.
They can
I just
actually
wanted
be-
the diameter.
Yeah.
Okay.
I used a full full width of Antron for the wing. I'm going to take another piece of Antron. I'll use the full piece because I want to build that thorax area up pretty good. So I'm going to tie that in there too. That looks pretty good. I have a little trouble with that, so I'm just going to use half hitches. When it rains, it pours. Definitely want to use some head cement on that because I really screwed up that head. Couple of half hitches. And then a double. And that should just about do it. Now, take those wings. Watch out for my tail there. And I like to do them at a little bit of a angle. Like that. And do the same with the other. Longer in the front and shorter in the back. If you want to get those out of the way. Like I said, I definitely want to use some head cement on this one. And that's a rusty spinner.
When you fish that, Mike, when you fish that, do you use fly floating on that or do you let it sink down through the water?
With the tails the way they're split out and that wing is a little bit rigid, it usually floats pretty good for the
Okay.
first couple of floats. If you want to keep drying it, you can, but definitely you could use. That's usually what I do on a lot of these type is use a silicone or some kind of a dry fly treatment. But the Antron sheds water, and the tailing fibers definitely don't hold any water.
I usually soak all my dry flies in a liquid waterproofer.
Yeah, that liquid waterproof. I don't know what that's made of.
Yeah, I don't either.
Some of them have like
Scotch
a
Guard works pretty good.
Scotch Guard or
Scotch
that
Guard works pretty
Camp
good.
Dry. Also Camp Dry.
Yep.
Like a silicone spray. I'm going to try. Where are we at? 623. I'm going to try a I'm going to go ahead to the RS2, and if we have time, I'll do a black version. The RS2 was developed by Rim Chung about 50 years ago. The name stands for Rim's Semblance 2. It's like the second version that he did. I've seen a few videos of him. He ties it on a hemostat. And I don't know how he clamps the hemostats to the table, but instead of a tying vise, he uses hemostats. So for the, it's pretty basic. He uses beaver dubbing. I'll try to get this in my other camera here. He uses beaver dubbing, and the wing is actually fluff from a hackle, from a saddle hackle. So this stuff that's normally torn off, that's what he uses for the wing. I'm just going to use some super
super fine dry fly dubbing. And this is a Dunn hen hackle, and the fluff on that is real light colored. I have this is a pheasant. That's a little bit more of a darker gray. That's kind of where I wanted to be. I also have a Coq de Leon hen hackle. That's a little bit darker, or more of a brown gray color. I think I'm going to go with this for the wing. And then it would match pretty good with the Adams gray for the dubbing. So I'm going to start with the gray. Where are we now on the materials? Try to tilt it up a little bit here.
What happened? Are you on a call?
Again, lay down a base of thread. This is a 8/0 uni thread. It's the only thing I had in the this gray color. Go back to the tailing fibers. Grab 2 of them. And make sure they're even. Take about 3 wraps. And then pull them through. Again, we'll go about a hook length and a half. Press those up a little bit, that'll start the split. And then we'll take a piece of thread. Helps with a longer piece of thread, I guess. That should be a little easier. Bring it right between those 2. Tails. That's pretty good. Get those wrapped down. I'm going to use, again, that Adams Gray superfine dubbing. Just put a little wisp of dubbing on there. By the time I get back to the back of the hook, I should be into my dubbing. Now, Rim Chung would actually figure eight the dubbing through the tail to keep it split apart. But if you use that thread method, that isn't required. Up to about right there. And then he just takes, again, we'll use this pheasant because it's about the right color. Take some of this fluff, split it away from the stem. And he moistens it to make it easier to handle. I'm going to cut some of those curlies away so they don't get in the way. Cut all that out of the way and come forward a little bit. Then we'll go back to the dubbing. Another very small amount. Twist it on the thread. And then he stands the wing up a little bit with that dubbing. Builds a little bit of a thorax there. A bit more. Lip finish. Clip the thread. Now, you see a lot of these on the YouTube videos and different things on the internet where they mostly refer to it as RS2 emerger, and they clip the ring really short. The way I've always seen Rim Chung do it is actually to give it more height to the wing, and on an angle like that. Whoops, and that's the RS2.
And I can speak from experience on that one, Mike. I've used it a lot on the South Platte River, and it's a very, very productive fly for the browns up there, especially when the blueing olives are just about ready to come on out.
Right, and the silhouette of that, it will eventually become an emerger, but when it does sink, it almost neutrally buoyant. It just barely sinks below the surface. And as long as you keep your leader, maybe do a little bit of floating on your leader, that'll stay within the top couple inches of the surface.
Yeah, and on occasion, I've even put, when they've gotten pretty wet, I've even put some floating on them to keep them just in the film or just a little bit below the film. And because you can see the trouter, that's what they're taking, because they're not making a splashy rise. You're just seeing their dorsal fin as they roll over the top. So they're taken right below the surface.
Right. And with that hackle fluff for a wing, you don't want to use any greasy kind of floating. You could use that on your leader if you have a greasy floating, but you just want to use like the liquid stuff that'll dry. Or just fish it like it is. It doesn't have to really have floating.
I never used the liquid stuff that dried. When you're flashing there, I'm not really catching the name. It's a little too
I'm
close.
sorry.
But what is it called?
It's called Watershed.
Watershed. Oh, Watershed. Okay, there, Mike. I got it.
Yeah, that's just the stuff that I've had this for years. It doesn't take a whole lot. You just put a little drip on there and it soaks up the.
Because I've only used silicone. That's something I'll have to try then.
It darkens it now, but then it'll. Whoops. Get my zoom back. It smells like a. Doesn't really have a smell. It'd be funny if it was just water. And they try to sell it as a, but then once that dries,
That's a good gig to sell water to everybody at a good price.
yeah, I know. Tell them it's fly floating, magic fly floating.
Yeah, I've used something called Rain-X, that stuff you put on your windows that keeps the water, forces the water to bead up, and that works pretty good sometimes too.
Right.
You soak them ahead of time, John, and then let them dry, or put it on while you're out there?
Yeah, both. I'll carry a little. You buy it in a quart bottle for about $5. I just put it into a little squirt bottle to carry with me in my vest.
Okay. I'll field test it next month.
The RS2 is. I've read that it's a pretty popular guide fly. You can tie them pretty quickly, and there's not a lot of materials in them. And
We use it all the time for the spring creeks in the Paradise Valley when I was guiding over there, and yeah, it's a go-to along with a couple of others.
now, did you use more of a short, stubby wing, or a longer wing?
Just like you did, but we tied them almost all on straight eye scud hooks.
Scud hooks, huh?
Yep.
I'm gonna try to do this one more time if I can find my tailing fibers. They blend in with my desk. Well, maybe I won't.
Here they are.
Sorry about that. There's two. They're so much easier to tie when you don't have the camera and the.
Well, it's a good view for us, so.
I'm glad that looks good. Between my, I just got new contacts, and it's monovision is how they set me up. So reading is in one, the reading prescription is in one eye and the distance is in the other.
Wow.
And it has really messed up my depth perception. That's why I'm having so much trouble with this. I can't see if I'm in between the fibers or not. Maybe if I go like this.
My brother had LASIK.
Better.
Yeah, when they did the cataracts on my eyes, they asked me if I wanted that, and I said no. Just give me something so I can see a size 22 fly at 40 feet, and that's what they did. And then I just wear reading glasses.
Right.
What's the point of that?
Of the monovision.
Yeah.
I don't have a real strong prescription for distance or close up. And so instead of having, a lot of times the bifocal contacts are a pain because they have to be weighted and everything. I'd rather not wear glasses if I don't have to. So with these contacts, your brain figures it out. You've got one eye that does close up, one eye that does distance, and your brain figures it out so you can see good both ways. It's pretty strange, but it works. I'm just really having trouble with the depth perception, and I'm blaming it on that.
I think they said it takes about a month for that, your brain to adjust.
And that could be, I just got them a week and a couple days ago. I'm just going to use a black dubbing on this Trico version. Oh, there was a lot of, I was always seeing Trico spinners in the Black Hills. There was a couple places that I would go and just, in the slack water, you just see piles of them. All stuck together, and fish are in there just sipping them. Like crazy. They're short and blocky. The thorax is real thick on a piece on a Trico. The other stuff out of there.
So what size did you use in the Black Hills?
Most of the time I used, all the midges that I fished were 18 and 20, but whenever I use these spinners, the Tricos are probably 18 and 20, at least that I saw. I usually fished a 16 because it was easier to tie and easier to see when I'm fishing it. And they seem just as eager to eat a 16.
What creek were you fishing up there?
Rapid Creek, one of my favorite places to fish was right near I think it's Rushmore Cave. It was Iron Creek and Battle Creek, I think it was, where the two of them met together, and right in that fork where the two of them came together, one had brown and rainbow trout, and the other one had brook trout. And so our goal was to, without walking too far from that area, to get what we called the Black Hills Triple Crown. And just this, it seemed like the smaller creeks is usually where I saw these, but I know Battle Creek definitely had a lot of these Trico. Like I missed actual spinner fall. I didn't like see the activity, but the spinners were just all over the water. And it was almost like fishing in a barrel. Especially little browns. They were just like eating these things up. Probably up to about maybe 12 inches, but most of them were about 6 or 8. But just
As
a
long as they
blast.
bite, they're fun.
Yep, absolutely. Right there in town, a lot of people fish crane flies. I think it's late summer. I don't remember when the crane fly craze was, but that was real popular in Rapid City, right in the where Rapid Creek comes right through town.
Right through the park there, right?
Yeah, yeah. I used to fish in that park all the time because it was just real easy access and a good place to do just a quick fish.
I'm gonna be at Legion in August.
Legion?
Yeah, Legion. You know where the lakes are by,
Trying to remember where that is.
right outside Cody coming into the park a little bit.
Oh, okay.
I think it's the second campground. The first one's that lake where they did all the gold mining, and the next one's where I'm at.
I think we're trying to plan we might stay in Custer at Sheridan Lake.
Yeah, that's nice.
It's a pretty spot. There's real good hiking trails close by, and Custer State Park just has lots of trout streams and a couple little lakes. So I like when I trim these, I like to kind of spread them out a little bit, because if you just get kind of a blocky wing if you don't spread them out. I like to try to get a little bit of a taper. It probably doesn't matter to the fish. And that'll do. So that's more of a trico spinner version.
Don't you hate it when the phone you're using to do your tying with decides to ring?
No, that was actually, we have a landline. The only reason we have it is because it's cheaper for our cable bill. We use
Yeah.
our cell phones for everything.
Yeah, we're the same way.
It rings for junk,
Yeah.
junk mail calls.
The last time I was tying with mine, I got all kinds of text messages and voicemails and emails, and it kept going off, and that's why I've changed. I'm going to a regular camera now.
Now with the tricos like that, I've seen sorry about that. I've seen what did they call it? There's a version of a trico spinner like this, but they used a black wire to make it sink a little bit. I forget what they called it. Sunken trico, I think that was the name of the fly, sunken trico. But it was a like a fine black wire. I have red, I don't have any black. That's used for the body. And it makes it sink. So that's two pretty easy dry flies, relatively easy if you have depth perception.
I've always avoided the tricos because I never knew how to tie them. But yeah, they are a fairly straightforward fly. And you're right, they are very prolific. I have never seen any up on the verdigris. I'll bet you if I tied that thing in gray with the RS2 and use it as a RS2 dropper off a trico, that would be an interesting combination.
Yeah, it would.
I really think there's a lot of midges. There's a big gray midge that I see at Walnut all the time. Around anywhere where there's wood, a lot of times I see them, and they're probably not quite a half an inch long, but they're between a quarter and a half inch long.
Yeah.
And I'll bet that's what's up there. The way you're describing that, I bet that's what's up there.
It could be, and in fact, I'm gonna try some patterns, not the spinner, but maybe the Trico-Dun, because that's what I think they are. I think what I'm seeing is the emergence. But like I say, they're about a size 18, so I'm gonna do some research, see if I can't time. I'm gonna try and get up next. Well, I can't get up next week. My car's gonna still be in the shop, so
Get a picture of one too.
easier said than done.
Yeah,
I know.
yeah, really. I've seen a couple black caddises.
Yeah, those I've seen up there, they come out quite a bit, and again, they're about an 18 or a 20. But this is a gray, and the last time I was up there, the trout were just going crazy for them, and I was able to manage to pick up a couple on a humpy, but man, nothing like I should have been able to get because they were just going crazy.
Yeah, I'll bet that just sounds like a midge hatch, those big midges.
Yeah, could be.
In the Black Hills, there was a lot of, it was a black caddis, and those were fairly big. So I started tying like a elk hair caddis, but with moose body hair.
Uh-huh.
You've got to use a strong thread because moose is tough, and
Yeah.
You don't want to flare it a lot. I think we over flare our caddis wings a lot of times with elk hair caddis. They're just way over flared. The shape of a caddis is more tent like, and of course the flared fibers are supposed to represent motion, but with those black caddis, I tied it with a peacock body
Uh-huh.
and moose for the hair wing, and oh man, those were nice looking. I liked them. I don't know. I mean, I caught a few fish on them, but I thought they were beautiful flies.
Yeah, I thought that when I first saw black caddis, I said, that's cool looking. But we don't have any of those in Colorado that I know of, at least.
And where did you see them, Mike?
I seen them out on these little farm ponds west of Omaha. There's some
Oh,
little ponds that farmers opened up for people to fish. But
Right.
everybody knows about them now, so they're not worth going to.
Yeah, I've seen them on the verdigris.
Mike, I've got to get running. Great job tonight.
Okay.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed it.
Thank you. I
Take care, my
struggled with
friend.
it at first there. Once I figured out the reading glasses part, I think I got it.
Before everybody jumps off, let me just mention that thanks to Mike's excellent efforts, Tim Flagler will be joining us on the in 2 weeks. What's that? The 31st?
31st.
The 31st. He's gonna. I sent out everybody an email on what he's going to be tying, and I'll remind Al because it's one that he's tied on his Friday night show. It's the what's he call it? The crystal pupa, which is an interesting
Sparkle
sparkle pupa. Excuse me.
LaFontaine sparkle pupa.